Okay, nice.
Oh yeah, let me start my video. Oh, nice fake background.
Here we go. What's up, Mario?
Hey, how you doing?
So I'm doing well, thank you. So as I said in the group, this call will be around us meeting in New York in App Promotion Summit, and then so we start with your story and your story about your AI app. So we
Sure.
can share your story, or what you did, how you can help us, or help everyone watching to improve their apps. And of
Yep.
course, for the members watching, drop your questions in the message box. Moyo will answer them.
That sounds good. That sounds good. And I guess for me in the message box too, it would be good just to know where everybody is at with the business right now, maybe how long you've been doing it, if you're on Android, iOS, or and
Yeah.
just context.
Give us some context, guys. Couple of lines.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
Hey
Yeah,
guys.
I can also uh, I can also say something. Nice to hear you. I read your story. Congratulations.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I believe we spoke a little bit also in Bashir community before, because we also have a few AI apps, and like also different directions. So it would be cool to listen to you. Maybe like share some life hacks, maybe some tips. So yeah,
Cool.
I think we work in like kind of a similar direction. So yeah, I wish you really good time and just cool presentation.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, definitely. I wish you all the same. All the same.
Guys, if you are shy, just drop some context in the text box. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Bashir, should I start now or
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. It's being
okay,
recorded.
cool. So welcome everybody, either on the call or in the future on the recording. So I'm Moyo Okome. I live in New York. I've been doing this mobile app stuff since probably around 2011. So I started in like a different era of the App Store. And at that time, it was more of the Wild West. You can do almost anything. And,
Which year was
you
that?
know, 2011, I think, yeah, it was, I think my first app went live in 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
So at that time, you were really able to, I didn't even use any advertising, and I was still able to, get I had a whole bunch of apps because I would
Yeah.
just publish constantly. It was the time when people would publish clones and reskin with barely even making changes. I always tried to add some value to all of the apps that I created, but it was still the bar for what you could get away with was much lower than it is
And are we talking
current.
iOS and Android or Android only or what did you
Yeah.
do?
Um, I was at that time I was iOS only. Now I'm on both, but iOS is my focus.
So it was like iPhone 3.5 inch screen. So only small iPhones back then. One screen.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, it was a big deal when they started to get bigger.
Messed
Um,
up everything. Yeah.
and even the way that they laid out like the search results was different. They had at that time, I think if you search for something on the App Store, you would see like 5 to 7 results, all as narrow. I don't know what you call them, but it was before they changed them to cards.
Yeah.
So if you ranked as number 4 or 5 on the result, it still meant something.
Yeah.
And so I like the my first month on the store, I probably made 30 $40, but it was so exciting. I think I had a racing game. I had two things. One was a typing game that I'd modeled off of a Yahoo app. Um, we used to play this game called Word Racer, so I created a game called Type Racer. That was the first one, and then there was a game. I tried to make it like Mario Kart, except it was 2D.
What did you use? Which technology? Like a Cocoa 2D or something?
That was, I think that was done in Objective C actually. So I wasn't doing the programming myself. I was working with
Okay,
folks that I found on Upwork,
okay,
right?
okay.
Um, and the guy who helped me with the racing game, I think somebody's
I
unmuted. Um,
Yeah, I did mute him. Go ahead,
the the
Khalid.
the guy who helped me with the racing game was a student, so it was a lot cheaper, but it just took a long time to get everything done. So,
Mm,
I learned something in that experience. But he was great to work with, and it still ended up being a profitable project. I tried all kinds of different marketing tricks and stuff. Um, but I guess eventually what I learned going through that was that I could use ASO. I could use ASO to get a lot of downloads and make money. At the peak
ASO
of
was a
that,
piece of cake back then, also, right?
yes, yes. So, for example, there was a time where, I had all of these apps, and then I one day I just saw one of my apps shooting up, and I said, okay, like what's going on? Why is this happening? And then I realized that it was because it had something about it had some keywords about like Temple Run somewhere in there, and Temple Run 2 had just come out. So there were all these searches for Temple Run. So it started getting a lot of down because it was ranking, I guess, fairly well on the keywords. So I said, okay, that's interesting. And so I started trying to put the words Temple Run into any, I have a lot of apps, so I could put them into any apps I could find. Apple kind of caught on, so they started stopping me. So I started trying to get more clever. So I would, eventually I came out with this app that was called I called it a bike race of Ninja Temple. So I was trying to target Temple Run, Ninja Bike, which was or Bike Racer, which was a big app at the time, and something else. And it worked, and that app actually ended up going to the top 10. I did some other things as well. I had integrated this service which allowed for concurrent two-player play. It was called I can't remember, but that helped a lot. So between that and like all the ASO hacks, that app actually went to the top 10. So it was making like thousands of dollars a day.
Okay.
Um,
From ads
I
or
yeah,
the game? Okay.
mostly ads. I had in-app purchases so people could buy like different different bikes and stuff or different characters.
Which year are we talking right now? 2000 something? Year.
Yeah, this is like 2013, 2012,
Okay.
2013, so still early times. So at that time, I went up. I actually, so I got interviewed for TechCrunch by that. The guy who had built the API for the two-player gaming, he gave me some good advice. He was like, "Look, you're getting all these downloads. You should try to um, dial back on the ads and make sure that you funnel these users into other apps and try to create something more long term." I said, "Listen, I'm making a lot of money. I love this. I'm not turning it off." But I guess a couple of years later, I saw kind of what Ketchup did,
Mhm.
and they had all of these minimalistic games, and they would just push the traffic from one app to another, and then they created something that sold for a lot, and then Voodoo kind of did the same thing. And I said, okay, I really made a big mistake then, but hey, you live and you learn. But yeah, I guess just fast forwarding to the future because I want to talk about that old stuff. So, the app game changed a lot during I guess a few years ago before the pandemic. I just reached the point where all the stuff that I had, so I sold my portfolio in 2015. It had already started to decline a bit in terms of downloads and revenue, but it was still, I was still able to sell it for a few hundred grand, right?
Okay.
Um, when I first started getting offers for the whole thing, I was getting much bigger offers, but
How many
you know,
apps did you have in that portfolio back then?
there were a lot. I want to say I want to say there were probably between 80 and 100 apps, right? Not all of them
Okay,
were productive.
okay.
Like even though there were a lot of apps, the revenue was, it's the whole 80/20 rule. A
Yeah.
lot of them just did very, very little, and some of them were very consistent performers.
How much was that
Um,
per month? Like 10K a month revenue wise from
so
ads?
at its peak, it was more like 30. By the
30K, yeah.
time I sold it, it was probably down to like 10.
Okay. How
Between
much did
ads.
that get you? Like 200,000, 150,000?
So I'll say multiple. I'll say multiple six figures.
Okay.
I'll say that. um, but yeah, it was a good chunk of change, but it wasn't enough, clearly to stop working or anything like that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but I definitely developed some bad habits by just having, you get used to money just flowing in, and so I wasn't as intense about um just developing new apps and trying
New
to,
products. Yeah.
yeah, to make the, I got a little bit lazy. And the market changed on me, and I, I'd sold it, and then after I sold it, I tried to start like
Something
five
new.
to seven different businesses at the same time.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Um, because I was like, okay, I sold for this amount. If I had more businesses, I can sell them all. But the problem is like none of them were really doing enough to be significant.
Because of lack of
Um,
focus. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a constant thing that we have to fight. So
Hmm.
in 2020, like end of 2019, 2020, I figured out, okay, I'm gonna have to go get a job because I'm not doing enough to sustain my lifestyle. I'd gone to a coding boot camp for data science. I ended up going to Netflix.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
that was good in terms of just helping me to financially get back in a great place and then be able to clear my mind and like get set up again. So all the while I was doing my stuff on the side, but with less pressure, and I got some apps going and making revenue again. And I guess fast forward to right now, um, when the AI stuff started happening, I just started getting interested in playing around. I think the first app that I tried to do was an AI art generator, just because I saw, I think I look at the marketplace the same way you do. I look at I use tools like Data.ai, and I look at the top grossing in different categories and just see who's moving around, how many apps are there of this type, um, and then I'll also try to cross-reference with tools like I use Mobile Action, but you can use any kind of ASO tool.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'm looking at for demand for the main keyword, and then also are there like keywords that I can compete for? So
Hmm.
what I'll typically do, like with this AI stuff, for example. So my first AI app was just an AI art generator. That one is those at the top. They're ones like Wonder and I think Arta is one right now. Those are extremely lucrative, but it's extremely competitive. Then I
Yes.
saw headshots come along, and it was still lucrative in terms of there were some players making a lot of money. And I also liked that it was something that had a real use in terms of, pe people have been getting headshots forever, for especially if you're in like real estate or actors, but there are lots of people that actually need headshots and pay lots of money for them.
Hmm.
So I saw this being an actual thing rather than just it can be fun, but there's also a real use case. And then I also saw that there were some on the web, like there was a product called Headshots Pro. I learned about it on Twitter, I think, and
Hmm.
There was one called Photo.ai. That one's more towards the art side, but and then I saw some other ones on the web, and people were paying real money, and the products were getting better and better. So I said, okay, this might be better to focus on because it just seemed like the competitiveness for a lot of the keywords were things that where I might be able to rank better than just going for
Mhm.
like AI art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that proved to be um, pretty true. And right now I get a lot of organic traffic for
Mhm.
my AI headshots app. I mean, it's gotten more and more competitive since I started, but the earlier you are on a trend like that, if you're able to make revenue against these keywords, then
Yeah.
Yeah.
you'll tend to be a little bit sticky and have an advantage over people that are newer, unless they're spending money.
Are you
Are you
running
running
Um,
any
ads right
ads
now?
right now?
so not for that app. I haven't run ads for that yet. I want to. I guess I'm running ads for another app, and
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I just being that I'm spending my money. I
Mhm.
do it all off my Amex. I'm profitable against that app, so um, I kind of like I know how to buy ads. I still want to scale it.
Yeah.
But if I were to start running experiments on the headshots, I probably need to dial back on the other app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Just because of where I am right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Let me
Um,
Let
take
me
you
take
one
you one
step
step
backwards.
backwards.
So,
So,
can
yeah.
you
can you
tell
tell
us,
us,
are you
are you
building
building
apps for
apps for
yourself or
yourself or
hiring
hiring
people?
people?
Oh, I'm hiring people. I'm
Okay.
hiring
Okay.
people.
Maybe some
Maybe
of
some
the
of the
watchers are
watchers are
not
not
technical.
technical.
So, can you
So,
tell
can you
us
tell us
about your
about your
hiring
hiring
process?
process?
Like,
Like,
how do you
how do you
find the
find the
people?
people?
Sure.
What is the
What is the
average
average
price you are
price you are
dealing with?
dealing
How
with?
much
How
do you
much do
pay
you
them?
pay them?
Yeah.
Give us
Give
Yeah.
us
some rough
some rough
numbers and
numbers and
examples.
examples.
Sure, sure. So right now, um, when I build an app, I have a team that I'm consistently working with in Turkey that just works for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that um for most apps it's gonna cost me like between 3 to 5 to put out like a good quality MVP that has some features, but it's not shaking the world, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can put it out there and it's something that I can probably monetize.
Yeah.
And I've always, even earlier on, I was always trying to keep my costs low.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That was always a main concern of mine. So I just try to spend as little as I can, while putting out something
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that is decent quality.
Okay.
So in terms of my initial process in terms of finding people is different from what I do now. I don't really try to find people now. I just work
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
who I'm already working with.
Obviously, yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
But back then, what I would do is I would put out a post on Upwork.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I would make it pretty simple. So let's say it was for a headshots app. I would say um, I might not even expose the whole thing
Yeah.
Yeah.
on Upwork just in case
Do
other
you
Do you
prepare
marketers will look.
prepare
wireframes for
wireframes for
them,
them,
for
for
example?
example?
Yes,
Why?
yes.
How do you
My,
How
do
do
my
you do
about the
about the
wireframe.
design?
yeah?
Yeah.
What's that?
How do you
How
do
do you
about
do
the
about the
design? Like,
design? Like,
who
who
do the
do the
design
design for who does the
design for
design
you?
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so let me take a step back, and there are a couple different ways that I did this, but so I'll go into Upwork and just say I'm looking for an app, and I might say I'm looking for an app in the photography category,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
on the level of quality of, and I pull some examples and just put the links in and just keep it very brief. Put the post out, see who applies. If people don't have a work history, I would probably get rid of them. If people have a rating below 4 stars, I would probably get rid of them. And I would see how many candidates I end up with, and then just start trying to I'll start trying to feel them out, reach out to the people who I think are the top in terms of the portfolio that they have. I try to not work with like big agencies for the most part because, a lot of times you're paying for the infrastructure there. So I would try to find somebody who seems like they're smart and passionate, but they're working for themselves. And then,
Yeah.
you never know no matter what they say on the site, you never know who you're dealing with until you actually work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I try to just create something very small scope initially,
Mm-hmm.
have them turn it around quickly, and see how that goes, and
Mm-hmm.
either I'm moving on to the next person after that. And you don't have, just because you hire somebody, you don't necessarily need to close the job. So if that one didn't work out, I can maybe move on to the next person and try interviewing them and hiring them. And that's kind of how I did it. And then what would happen is that after we complete an entire project,
Yeah.
I can just assess how did that go? How do they are they timely? Do they have the skills that they said they had? Are they, thinking of ideas that I didn't think of and presenting them? And so I'll decide to either double down on them or go find somebody new. Then in terms of the design, I tried to keep that as simple as possible. I wasn't going and like designing the whole app in Figma or anything. I was just figure out what is the main functionality that I need to have in this, and just try to really draw. I'll look at the top 3 or 5 apps that are doing what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'll figure out like what is the core thing that needs to happen, and then I'll try to draw out those screens on a piece of paper. And that was, that was the way I would do my wireframes. Then I had an artist that was working for me, so he would turn it into a UI, and then we would give that UI to whichever developer I was working with. So after a while, I just had my core team of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the team that I work with they have their own designers and
Okay.
Okay.
developers, so you know that allows me to worry about less of that, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't have them, I guess I'd probably be doing the same thing that I was.
Can
Can
we
we
go
go
back to
back
the
to the
designer
designer
part?
part?
Can you
Can
tell
you
us
tell
Mhm.
us
roughly how
roughly how
much does
much
it
does it
cost to
cost
hire
to
a
hire a
designer for your
designer for
app?
your app?
How
Like,
much
how
did you
much did
pay,
you
for
pay, for
example?
example?
Like
Like,
Um,
an
on an
average app,
average
not a
app, not a
fancy one,
fancy
but
one, but
normal
normal
price.
price. So,
yeah. Well, so right, it's I can't even remember. So right now, I have a designer that I pay him between like $700 to $1,200,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
mm-hmm.
depending on what's going on for the
Okay.
month.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I just pay him I just keep him on a monthly basis, and he does work for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's my main person. That's outside of outside of the team I talked about. He's just
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
working with me for years and years. Um, but I feel like I would try to just keep it below $1,000 for
Okay.
my
Okay.
initial project.
Including the
Including the
screenshots and
screenshots
logo
and
or
logo
without?
or without?
Um, so when I first started, I wasn't designing screenshots. I would just take shot,
Screenshot.
Screenshot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
literally take
Yeah.
screenshots of the screen. After a while, I think that those can be gotten pretty cheaply on something like, it, I would just have it all included in the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're gonna design the screenshots, I would have it included in one price.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's say, okay, I'm going to pay you, um, let's say it was $900. I would want the screenshots to be part of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
something you can negotiate. I don't like paying for like piecemeal, this that like the first project I ever did, I did on a hourly basis,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then I figured out right after that project that I never wanted to do that again.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
more so want them to just quote me, hey, based on what you're asking for, this is what I can do for you, and then it either works for me or it doesn't.
Okay.
And then I don't have to be monitoring what somebody's doing all the time. I mean, I'll need to be checking in with them to make sure it doesn't take like,
Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's a
result-based
result-based
compensation,
compensation,
so
so
you
yeah,
don't
you
have
don't
yeah.
to
have to
babysit
I
babysit
think
anyone.
us.
it works much better for this remote kind of working.
Yeah. So
So
Um,
you
we spoke
we
about
spoke about
you
you
hiring
hiring
someone to
someone to
develop,
develop
you
it, you
hiring a
hiring a
designer,
designer,
and then
and
you
then
do the
you do the
publishing in
publishing
the
in
App
the App
Store, and
Store,
then
and then
obviously you do
obviously
your
you do your
launch.
launch.
How do you
How do
do
you do
about
about
your
your
first 10
first 10
reviews
reviews
for each
for
app?
each app?
for I tend I just reach out to people that I know
If
for those.
Okay.
Um,
okay,
I'll even get my mom. She, she
Uh,
does. Actually, my mom uses a lot of my stuff. Just she's supportive. But
Okay.
okay.
my wife, I'm like, hey, what time it is? Time to review. My kids don't have phones yet, but
Okay.
once
Okay.
they do, hey, get on that phone review. And anybody I know, I'll reach out to them and just what people that I know that I can ask. People who are like close to me and who maybe they work on stuff like this. They'll just help me out like that,
Okay.
or
Okay.
I'll go into anybody who I know I can make an easy ask. I'll ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And
So
now I
then
will
now I
take
will
you to
take
the
you to the
part
part
where
where
you have the
we have the
reviews, the
reviews, the
screenshots,
screenshots,
everything
everything
is looking
mhm.
looking
beautiful.
beautiful.
How do you
How do
do
you do
about
about
making the
making the
decision
decision
which channel
which
to
channel to
advertise?
advertise into?
Uh, ASA.
ASA,
What's your
what's your
decision flow?
decision flow?
Can you
Can you
describe it
describe
more?
it
got
to me?
got it. So in terms of advertising, I've experimented with a few different channels.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us
Tell
about
us
So
it.
about that.
that's Meta, ASA, TikTok at one point. But at this point, I've kind of decided that it's better for me to just stick with what I know, and it either works or it doesn't. So I use Meta primarily,
Hmm.
just because I'm familiar with it. I kind of know how to work the channel.
Hmm.
And um, yeah, even though it doesn't work for everything, I know that hey, like people are spending a quadrillion dollars on Meta right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there are people out there making this work. Let me just use this. And being that I'm one person,
Hmm.
I don't want to spread myself too thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, CPIs are crazy now. Oh,
AI
got you,
AI
apps.
got
Yeah,
you.
apps,
it's a
yeah, it's a
suicide, of
suicide,
course.
of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
do you use
Do you
any
use
Um,
any
MMP
MMP
connected to your
connected to your
I, I don't.
advertisement?
So I've
advertisement
tried
review?
it before, and I found that it didn't help. It just created more another layer of complexity for me.
For you,
For you,
okay.
I
okay.
How do
think
you
How
track
do you track
I
performance?
performance?
So
So
you just
you
have
just
one
have one
channel,
channel,
so you know
so
your
you know your
traffic is
yes,
traffic
coming
is
from
coming
there. You
from
don't
there. You
have to
don't
worry
have to
about
worry about
where it's
where
coming
it's
yeah,
from.
yeah,
coming
yeah.
from.
So I'm
Okay.
Okay.
since I'm only spending on Meta, I look at all of the dashboards and stuff, but then ultimately, at the bottom line, you have to know how much you're spending, how much you're making. Does this make sense? So that's
What
the the top.
do you
What do
use
you
for
use for
revenue?
revenue? Like
Sorry for
sorry for
interrupting.
interrupting. Like
Yeah,
to
go
Monitoring
monitor
ahead.
your
revenue.
revenue, like
Do you use
you use
Revenue Cat,
revenue
for
cat, for
example? What do you
example. What
use?
do you use?
Yeah, I do use Revenue Cat. I use Revenue Cat, and then
That's
of
your
That's
course
your
main, or you
main,
have
or you
something
have
else?
something else?
What did you
What did
test?
you
that's
test?
that's that's my main that I'm looking at on a day-to-day basis. But then,
Okay,
Okay.
I also have to look at App Store Connect and just see,
that's
hey,
2
That's two
days of
days
delay,
of
I think,
delay, I
right?
think, right?
in
Or
terms of revenue,
Yeah.
no,
yeah.
it's you see it the next day.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, you see it the next day. So I'll be looking at Revenue Cat consistently, but let's say where that can, I guess, be off if there are refunds and stuff. The numbers change, and then the way that Revenue Cat has their time zone set up, it's a little bit different from
Yeah.
Yeah.
um
They don't
They
have
don't
from
have
time
a
Appster
time
zone
Connect.
zone
settings.
settings.
I don't know.
I don't
They
know. I don't.
it's funny for the graph. You actually can't. I don't know why they do that, but you can't change the time zone setting of the graph unless I'm just out of my
Okay.
mind. But I've looked for it, and
Okay.
Okay.
um yeah, maybe someday they'll do that, but to my knowledge,
Okay.
it doesn't. Yeah,
So
but so revenue cat's what I look at
Hmm.
most often. But then, I just want to make sure that the actual matches up to what I think I'm seeing in revenue cat. At the end of the day. So even though I'm not looking at App Store Connect all the time, I'll go check in there and just
Hmm.
see what does it say, and then what did I actually get deposited after the end of the period,
by the way,
right?
By the way,
since
since
Max
Max
mentioned the
mentioned the
CPI, how is
CPI,
the
how is the
API cost
API
for
cost
the
for
AI
the
app?
AI
Which
app?
API
Which
are you
API are
using
you
for
using
the
for
headshot?
the headshot?
Got it. So there's one called Astria that I'm using.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's fairly, I'll say this AI stuff is more costly than any other API I ever used. I
Mm.
think their costs are fairly reasonable. So I use them, and then there's another one. These guys that were emailing me called, oh, shit, what is it called? I can't remember. But the
It's fine.
That's
costs,
fine.
it was like a company out of somewhere in Asia, I think.
They offer
They
And
something
offer something
cheaper.
cheaper.
what's that?
You mean they
You
What'd you
mean
offered
say?
they offered
something
something
cheaper?
cheaper?
Yeah, the costs were looking good, but I haven't done my due diligence to see if the company is good.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
first API that I had used was called Stable Diffusion API. The costs were quite good, but then I would have errors all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The thing would be down, and this was a guy, young developer in India, ambitious entrepreneur, but he didn't seem to realize that it was important to keep his service
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at a high,
Availability.
you
Availability.
know, yeah, high availability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he'd be arguing with me about, oh no, it's fine. And I'm like, no,
Mm.
Mm.
look at my customers, it's down. So, yeah, the cost was great there, and the output of that API I actually liked a lot, but um, the
Yeah.
Okay.
the reliability was horrible.
Okay. So
Okay.
let
So
me
Syria
let
summarize
me
has
it.
been,
summarize.
Yeah. Go
what's
ahead.
that?
So I'm
So
gonna
No, I
I'm
said,
gonna
summarize.
summarize.
I'm gonna
oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
summarize it.
Okay,
summarize a
you go
little
ahead.
bit.
You go ahead.
You hired your team. You
You
developed
hired
your app.
your team. You
You hired the
developed your
designer for
app.
the
You
screenshot
hired the
in the app.
designer for the screenshot
You
in the app.
started
You
advertising in
started
Meta since
advertising in Meta since
beta on
beta
Meta.
on Meta.
Oh, sorry. So for the Headshots app,
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah,
advertised. I haven't advertised yet.
Not yet.
not
So
yet.
it's
So
5K
it's 5K
organic.
organic.
Oh yeah, and it's not consistently 5K. So
It's up and
It's
down.
up
Yeah,
and
I
down.
know.
Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's up, and I actually I had some great results initially, and then I hit a period where I was having a lot of bugs in my app,
Okay, so
Okay,
people
and
so
would
people
cancel.
would
Yeah.
cancel. Yeah.
well, it wasn't. I didn't even have subscriptions initially. At first, it was just one time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it was around the time when we were implementing that there was a mistake made. And so I just got hit with a flood of terrible reviews,
Yeah.
and so that also tanked the traction of that the app was
Yeah.
getting.
Yeah.
But I think I think it was also converting better with one-time payments, which makes sense. So something that I do want to test with this app is doing, going back to one-time payments that are higher, like
Yeah.
a higher
Yeah.
dollar value, but then having a subscription that has lower pricing.
Uh-huh.
I've noticed that the ones on the web are most of them are just one-time payments. They're just a lot higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people definitely succeeding with that model. I know, apps in the web are always different, but it's something that I definitely want to, I always believe it doesn't hurt to experiment, and then if it doesn't work, you just go back to what you were doing before.
So I have one
So I have
Um,
question
one
at
question
this
at
point.
this point.
mhm.
I missed this
I missed this
question before,
question
which
before,
is
which is
why did you
why
take
did
the
you take the
decision to start
decision to
your
start your
software
software
as a
as
native
a
mobile
native
app
mobile app
and not a
and
web
not a
and
web
then
and then
upgrade to a
upgrade to
mobile
a
app?
mobile app?
What's the
What's the
decision flow
decision flow
behind this?
behind
Like,
this? Like,
is it
is
skill
it skill
wise? Is it
wise?
less
Is it less
expensive for you to
expensive for you
start
to start
a
a
mobile app?
mobile app?
How did you
How
take
did
this
you
Got it.
take
Got
this
it.
decision?
decision?
It's more so just because I would say it's just because of the folks I have working with me right now, and how they work, what they're used to. If I wanted to do it on the web, I would probably need to go to somebody else. Um,
Yeah.
Either that or just invest the time with them in learning. Okay, this is how we're gonna do it. These are the tools we're gonna use.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not even that. It might be it might be easier or better to go on the web, but I'm just kind of inertia.
Okay.
Okay.
So I can
So I
go
Um,
can go
now to the
now to
next
the
point,
next
which is
point,
now we
which is now we
described all the
described all the
decision and
decision and
everything
everything
external to the app.
external to the app.
So let's
So
go
let's
inside
go
the app.
inside the
Can you
app. Can you
describe?
describe,
Are you using,
are you
for
using, for
example, an
example, an
onboarding? What's the
onboarding?
logic
What's the
behind
logic
your
behind your
onboarding?
onboarding?
In your
In your
yeah,
successful app, it
successful
doesn't
app, it
have to be
doesn't have
about
to
the
be about
AI
the
app.
AI app.
Can you
Can
got
you
describe?
it, got it.
describe?
Can you tell
Can
us
you
a
tell
couple of
us a couple
points
of
that
points that
you
you
saw
saw
that
that
they made a
they made
difference
a
for you?
difference for you?
Wow,
Like,
this is
wow,
Yeah,
this
great.
is
yeah.
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Tell us.
Yeah, tell us.
Definitely. So um, there's another app. This one's it's a coloring app.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one has, it's done well for me over the years. And on the onboarding, initially I would just it didn't have an onboarding. Initially, it would just pop up the payment screen, and people would either exit out or pay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
believe it or not, that worked for this. And I think it's just because it was in a niche that um wasn't well served, so people were willing to do that. But I
Mm-hmm.
found that when I put in a couple of onboarding screens, retention improved. I assume just people just don't like to get smacked in the face with an ad as the first thing. So I put in the kind of like standard three screens, and it would just talk about different benefits of the app and then introduce the paywall.
Yeah.
And so that worked better. Then another thing that I did with the paywall was I saw an article somewhere about a payment ramp, and I forget where this was, but basically the guy was just talking about reframing the free trial as a benefit. Let me let me find the wording. Oh shit. I'm trying to see where I have it. But oh yeah, give me 1 second. I want to go find the wording of this, but
Okay.
Okay.
it's just rather than saying, hey, use this free trial, I think it's now framed as claim your free week,
Okay.
and
Okay.
that actually converted significantly
Better.
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 Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting sometimes how you can just play with words and play with language, and that made I can't remember the percentage difference, but it was significant. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can find this so I can put it on the screen
Let's
for you.
try. Yeah.
But we get
But we get
the main
the main
idea.
idea.
Yeah, you know what? What I'll do is I'll share it in the group later on.
Share it in the
Share it
group.
in the
That's
Um,
group.
much
That's
better.
much better.
Yes.
Yes.
So
yeah.
tell us
So
about
tell
the
us about
tracking
the tracking
inside the app.
inside the
So
app.
what do you
So
do
what do
for
you do for
tracking?
tracking?
How you
How you
structure your
structure your
tracking?
tracking?
Which
Got
tools
it,
Which
you
got it.
tools do
use?
you use?
Stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So I started after I watched your interview with Steve, I started
Yeah.
using Smart Look and Crisp Chat.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's only one of my apps right now, but it's kind of just nice to see what people are doing, how they're behaving in the app. Um, I use Amplitude in order to have some different events and have a funnel, see where people drop off, understand the retention. Um, it's good. I don't have it in all my apps, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it in a few of them, and that's been good. Um, I use Revenue Cat all the time
Do you do
now.
Do
any
you do
A/B
any
testing?
A/B testing?
I don't. I don't do A/B testing. I was actually
Okay.
talking to a guy that I met at the App Promotion Summit from Adaptee,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he was just talking about how their tool helps you with A/B testing on the paywall. So I thought that sounds pretty interesting.
You can
You
Do
can
do you
do it.
you can do it
You can
with
do it with
Revenue Cut.
Revenue Cut.
With Revenue
With
Cut,
Revenue Cut,
you can do
you
A/B
can do
testing
A/B
for the
testing for the
pricing and
pricing, and
so is
so
A/B
is
testing
A/B
for different
testing different
products in the
products
paywall.
in the paywall.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
my last
my last
experiment, I did
experiment, I
plus
did plus
80%
80%
LTV.
LTV.
So
So
Really?
you can understand the gap.
understand the
I'm
gap.
trying to
I'm
take
trying to take a
screenshot and
screenshot
send it
and
over.
send it over.
Wow.
So
That's
So
amazing. That was just
um,
a pricing test?
yeah, so
yeah, so
pricing in
pricing
product.
in product.
I'm gonna
I'm
drop it
gonna
in the
Nice.
drop it
chat
in the
now.
chat now.
I'm
I'm
trying
trying to
to
drop it in
chat
the chat
so everyone
so
can keep
everyone
a
can keep the
screenshot.
screenshot.
It was my
It
most
was my most
successful
successful
A/B test.
A/B test.
Yeah, that's also. And was that across like a significant amount of traffic?
Let me give you
Let
the
me give you
exact
the
number.
exact number.
So
So
we
we
had
had
34
34
days as
34
the
days as the
duration
duration
2,000
2,000
something
something
customer
customer
for
for
each
each
variation
variation
for
for
A and
A
B.
and
So
B.
it's
So
total
it's total
4,000.
4,000.
So
Yeah.
So
I
I
only
only
turned
turned
off
off
after
after like
this
this
significant
significant
amount
amount
of
of
data.
data.
I'm
I'm
trying
trying
to
to
see
see
if
if
I
I
can
can
drop
drop
anything in
anything
the
in the
chat.
chat.
That's an awesome test.
And
And
I did
I
like
did like
15
15
experimentation in the
experimentation
last
in the
couple
last
of
couple of
months
months
to
to
make sure
make
that
sure that
I'm in
I'm
the
in
safe
the
side.
safe
So
side. So
I have
I
this
have this
screenshot.
screenshot.
It's in the
It's in
chat.
the chat.
You can see
You
the
can see the
difference.
difference.
So it's
So it's
81%
81%
LTV,
LTV,
extra
extra
LTV,
LTV,
with
with
only
only
testing different
testing different
pricing
pricing
in the
in
paywall.
the
So
paywall.
it's the
So
same
it's the same
paywall,
paywall,
and
and
that's your
that's your
81%
81%
of
of
increase.
increase.
Yeah, that's clear. Wow.
So and this
So
is
and this
called
is called
experiment in
experiment in
a
a
revenue cut.
revenue cut.
You can
You
run
can run
experiments. You can
experiments. You
so
can
obviously connect
obviously
your
connect your
products,
products,
organize
organize
them
them,
based
and
on
based
different
on different
assumptions.
assumptions,
You
you start
start
experiment
which
which
one
one
is
is
the
the
first,
first,
and
and
then you
then
test that.
you test that.
Give it a couple
Give
of
it a couple
days,
of
and
days,
then
and
test
then test
the
the
pricing
pricing after
seeing.
seeing
So
who's.
there is
So there
different
is different
assumptions
assumptions you can
test.
test.
Paying
Paying paid.
so I
So
had
I
a
had
paid
paid
yearly and
yearly and
free trial
free
for the
trial for
weekly.
the weekly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the free
Obviously,
trial
the
for
free
the
trial for the
weekly
weekly
one,
one,
and then I
and
start
then I start
experimenting on the
experimenting on
pricing
the
for the
pricing
free
for the
trial
free
weekly.
trial weekly.
And from
And
that
from
moment,
that moment,
I had
I had
this
this
discovery.
discovery.
Which app was this for?
This is
This is
an AI
an
chatbot.
AI chatbot.
Okay, okay. And so with the free trial, so I guess how much uh h- so when I guess I'm just thinking about the people who don't convert.
Yeah.
So is that not too costly? Um
No, it does.
No, it does.
This
This
experiment I
experiment
ran
I ran
on organic
on
traffic.
organic
So
traffic. So
34
okay.
34
days ads
days
turned
ads
off.
turned off.
So I took the
So I
risk,
took the
So
risk,
I have
So
some
I have
organic
some
Yeah,
traffic
yeah.
organic
coming in
traffic coming in
with
Yeah.
little
with a
bit
little
of
bit of
Apple Search
Apple
Ads
Search
Basic,
Ads Basic,
$1 target
$1
per
Yeah.
target per
install,
install,
not more.
not
So if
more.
there
So
is
if there is
installs or not,
installs or
so
not,
it's
so it's
a
a
ASA
ASA
basic
basic
$1 cost.
$1 cost.
So when you
So when
keep
you
it there,
keep it
I
there,
target
I target
USA,
USA,
Canada,
Canada,
Brazil,
Brazil,
I think
I think
Mexico or not.
Mexico
I'm
or
not
not.
sure.
I'm
So
not
I
sure.
have
So
my
I have
list of
my list
countries
of
where I know
countries
my
where I
revenue
know
is
my
coming
revenue is
from.
coming from.
So I shipped
So I
Yeah.
them
shipped them
in
in
SA,
SA,
and I just
and
set
I
it
just set it
to run.
to run.
And
Got it, got it.
so that's
So that's
$1. So
$1. So
maybe they
maybe
spend
they spend
$30
$30
each 2 weeks.
each 2 weeks.
It's not that
It's
much
not that
Yeah,
much
yeah,
traffic,
yeah.
traffic,
but it
but
has
it
a
has
good
a
impact
good
on
impact
your
on your
visibility.
visibility.
Got it, got it, got it. I guess for context, why I was asking, so for example, in my headshots app, if somebody generates a set of headshots, I think the variable cost to me each time is going to be a couple dollars, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about giving people a free trial for that, it's just hard for me to think about because if they don't convert, then it just ends up being very costly.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I have, there are other apps where I really don't have per user costs like that, where it's much easier to say, okay, sure, free trial,
Yeah.
just as a conversion tactic. But I guess the numbers must just work well for a case like this.
I did
I
also
did
see
also
some
see
people
some
doing
people
a
doing
free
a
trial
free
button,
trial
but the
button, but
product
the
is paid.
product is paid.
So there
Oh,
is
So they use
yeah,
I'm not
uh,
getting into those games.
people refund
people
at the end of
refund
the
at the
day
end of the day
because there is
because they
Yeah,
receive
yeah,
the
yeah,
email with the link. There
yeah.
is
different games.
different games.
So back
So
to your
back to your
projects.
projects. How do you communicate usually with your
Developers?
developers?
Do you have like
Do you have like
a software
software
project
project
management tool
management
like
tool
Trello,
like
or what do
Trello,
you
or
use
what do you
exactly
use
to
exactly to
ticket
ticket
everything?
I'm
everything?
using Slack primarily.
So
In the
you chat
So
with
you
past,
them,
chat with them.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, in the past, I've used Asana.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
w- when I wanted to be, yeah, I guess it's good. I can set up each project and be very organized. But lately, I've just been using Slack.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been
I've been
using
using
ClickUp.
Teacup.
They have
They
very
have
good
a very good
free
free
solution, so you
solution,
can
so you
upgrade
can
later.
Pick
upgrade
up?
later. But
ClickUp.
ClickUp.
Okay, yeah, I've used that once before, but that
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think it was I was in somebody's course and they had it in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's a
free
free
almost forever
almost
if you
forever
don't
if you
store
don't store
huge
huge
files in
files
the
in the
platform.
platform.
So only
So
text and
Nice.
only text and
screenshots, it will be
screenshots, it
free
will be
forever.
free forever.
And you can
And
host
you
your
can host
content
your
in
content
Google
in
Drive. They
Google
have
Drive. They have
pretty good
pretty good
previews,
previews,
and
and
they
they
have
have
very good
very
previews
good
if you
previews
include
if you
a long
include a
video.
long video.
So in my
So in
tickets, I
my tickets,
include a
I
long
include a
video
long
where
video
I
where I
record me
record me
speaking
speaking
to the
to the
developer,
developer,
and I show
and I
them
show them
where
where
is
is
the change
the
they should
change
do.
they should do.
So they have a
So they
Yeah.
have a very good preview. So this is one of my
Okay.
pro
I'm
tips.
seeing that there's a question. Do I allow users to generate unlimited headshots? Especially they cost you $1.50 per fine tune. No, I don't. So the way it's structured now for me is so for the on the weekly plan, they'll just get um one a week, and if they want more, then they'll get a one-time payment. It for me, it's like not the best setup in the world in terms of, just being a straightforward offer that's understandable. But I haven't, I get some complaints. I haven't gotten a ton of complaints. Why not use your own hosted server? I guess I could. I would just have to figure out how to do it. So if you yeah, I haven't looked into it. So um
I mean, you can
I
ask
mean, you
your
can ask your
dev team to
dev
set it
team
up
to
for
set
you.
it
It's
up
not
for
that
you. It's not that
expensive.
expensive.
mm-mm. Yeah. Yeah, I'll look into it actually. I think it's probably worthwhile, especially
Mhm.
since we're investing more time in this app. But yeah, for getting started, um how many renewed do I have on the week? I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I think the majority of I think a lot of people cancel, but then some people stay on. Um some people keep using it, some people just forget. I actually don't like having products where the majority of users are just forgotten. I don't think that that's the most sustainable way to operate, but yeah, I'm still kind of like working on this model.
Guys,
Guys,
let's move to the
let's move to
question
the
part.
question part.
Anyone who has a
Anyone who
question,
has a
please write
question,
it
please
down in
write
the
it down
chat,
in the chat,
either to Mo
either
or
to Mo
on
or
general.
on general.
So any
So
question
any
related
question
to the
related to the
SaaS
SaaS
apps word,
apps
please
word,
write it
please
down
write
in
it
the
down
chat.
in the chat.
Yeah, I'll
I
Hisham
think
told me he has a
Hisham told me he
question.
has a
Please write
question.
it
Please
down.
write it down.
Let's see
Let's
if we
I'll
see
can
if
help.
we can help.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Mario.
Oh no, I said I'll also say um I have another for my other AI art generator that has a different payment structure, and I feel like that one has gotten it's gotten less complaints. So the way that that one is people who buy a subscription,
Yeah.
Yeah.
um the subscription is really just giving you a discount on the one-time payment. So like for
Mhm.
example, if somebody's paying like let's say 30 or $40 for the year, they'll pay that, and then that discounts like 20 or 50% off of the cost of buying individual buying any of the in-app purchases really. And interestingly enough, um, I get almost no complaints about
Okay.
that one.
Yeah.
I didn't think people would love it, but that app also doesn't get as much traffic and hasn't had as many problems with errors. But yeah, I don't know. It's just another way that things could be priced. I also noticed that there's some competitors in the space that um, they do use free trials and on their weekly plans or monthly or yearly, and they'll do like 6.99. Some of them are like only promoting 6.99 weekly, and I think they do give unlimited images, but I think there's like another way of generating um, headshots where they're not actually doing fine tuning, and the results that I've seen aren't great, but it's working
Mhm.
for people, so it is another it's another option. I think it's called Face ID. At least I think that's what Astria calls it. So I haven't tried that out in my own apps, but it's something else for
Okay,
Okay,
Moyo,
it's something.
Moyo,
Yeah.
we have a
we have
question
a
in the
question
chat.
in the
Can you
chat.
try
Can you
answer
try
that,
answer
and I
that,
will give
and
my
I will
input
give my
after you?
input after you.
How frequently do I launch new apps? I don't. I guess I don't look at it that way. Um, Launching 2 to 3 apps monthly and seeing what works. Um, I guess if you can, the problem there is going to be being able to focus and make the adjustments you need to make in order to get good traction, because a lot of times things just don't work straight out of the gate, and you have to iterate and invest into it before you'll actually see that traction. Sometimes they do, but it's more rare. But that's kind of how I used to operate. I would just kind of put as much out as I can, see what's working, and then double down.
Okay, let
Okay,
me
let me
answer
answer
Sataya. I think
Sataya, I
in
think,
his
in his
question.
question.
I think he didn't
I think
check
he didn't check
the app
the
idea
app
research
idea
section
research
in the
section in
classroom.
the classroom.
I don't think
I
that you
don't think
have to
that you
invest
have to invest
your time in
your
three apps
time in
each
three
month.
apps each month.
It's better to have
It's better
one
to
good
have
idea
one good
backed by
idea backed
data,
by data,
and then
and
develop
then
that since you
develop
are a
that since you are
developer
a
and launch
developer
it.
and launch it.
So
So please
please
go
go
check
check
the
the classroom
classroom
section
section
for
for
the
the
app
app
idea
idea
research.
research.
There is five
There is
different
5
ways
different ways
where you can
where you can
see how to
see
research
how to
app
research
ideas
app ideas
backed by data,
backed by
and you
data,
don't have
and
to
you
waste
don't
your
have to
time
waste your time
putting three
putting
apps
three apps
in the store
in
each
the
month
store each
without
month
getting any
without getting
revenue.
any
So
revenue. So
go check that.
go check that.
Let's move
Let's move
to Nikita
to
question,
Nikita question,
which
Yeah,
is
and
a
which is
technical
a
one.
technical one.
I'll just agree with that. I owe anything that I launch. I've always done some research to make sure that people are making money on similar apps, and
Hmm.
then nowadays I also just try to look at the competitive aspect and
Yeah.
Yeah.
try to make sure that it's likely that I can compete
So you use
So
data
you
in
AI,
use
you
data
said,
AI, you
right?
said, Moyo, right?
Data.ai. I use mobile action in terms of
Good.
Okay.
the keyword stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think any keyword tool would be fine
Mhm.
for that
Hmm.
purpose.
Let's go to
Let's
Nikita.
go to
What do you
Nikita. What
suggest
do
in
you
terms of
suggest in
using
terms of
machine
using
learning
machine
models
learning
in the
models
app
in the
in
app
terms of
in
cost?
terms of cost?
Should have own
Should have own
ecosystem or
ecosystem
for
or
models
for
or go
models or
for
go for
API calling? I
API
mean,
calling? I mean,
you
it's
have to
you
build your
have to
own
build your
business
own
plan
business
in terms of
plan in
cost
terms
and
of
what do you
cost and what
expect
do you
as
expect
traffic and
as
what do you
traffic and
expect
what you
as
expect as
feature requests
feature
for your app.
requests for your app.
So this is
So this
related to
is
your
related
business
to your
plan.
business plan.
So you have to
So you
select
have
what
to
is
select what is
best for you in
best
terms
for
of
you in
cost,
terms of
obviously,
cost,
in
obviously, in
effectiveness. So you don't
effectiveness.
have
So
to
you
waste
don't
your
have to
time
waste your
building
time
something
building
else
something else
that is already
that is
out there
already
for
out there
a
for
good
a
cost.
good cost.
So
So
Hisham question.
Hisham question.
I currently have
I
two
currently
App
have
Store
two App
developer
Store
account,
developer
which is
account, which is
dangerous.
dangerous.
On the
On the
30% commission rate.
30% commission rate.
I'm considering
I'm
applying
considering
for the
applying for
program,
the
also
program, also
acquiring a third
acquiring a
developer
third
account.
developer account.
Should I wait
Should I
until I
wait
have the
until I
third
have the
account to
third
apply,
account to
or
apply, or
you will have
you will
to
have to
certify Apple that
certify
you are
Apple
not
that you are not
involved in any
involved in
other
any
account?
other account?
I don't know if
I
you
don't
can
know
do
if you
this.
can
It's
do
very
this. It's
dangerous
very
if because
dangerous
they
if
will know
because
at
they
some
will know
point
at
that you
some point that
have
you have
three accounts
three
from the
accounts
same
from the
computer.
same
They will know
computer. They
that.
will
I know
know that.
someone who
I know
got
someone who
banned.
got banned.
Should I
So
apply
Should I
what's
now with
apply
what's
two?
the
now with two?
purpose, and why do you want to have yeah, I guess why do you want to have all these accounts?
Do you have
Do you
three
have
apps
three
making
apps
more
making
than 1
more
million
than 1 million
combined and you want to
combined and you
separate
want to
them?
separate
Because other
them?
than
Because
that,
other than
it
that,
doesn't make
it
any
doesn't
sense.
make any sense.
What
Hisham, why
Hisham,
you
why
are
you
looking
are
to
looking
acquire
to
three
acquire
accounts?
three
Can you
accounts?
explain
Can
your
you
point in the
explain your
chat?
point in the chat?
Because three
Because
accounts is
three accounts
dangerous,
is dangerous,
and the three of them
and the
will
three
get
of them
banned
will
if
get
you use
banned
this.
if
If you do
if
this,
you
this
do
is
this. This is useless.
you are trying
You
to
are
optimize
trying to
something
optimize
dangerous.
something dangerous.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
So either the
So
three with
either the
thirty
three with
percent,
30%,
maximum
maximum
15% only
15%
in one.
only in one.
And what you are
And
doing
what you
now
are
is
doing
useless.
now is useless.
Unless you tell me
Unless
that
you tell me that
you have
you
more than
have
one
more
million
than
dollar
$1 million
coming in each
coming
month
in each
from
month
Apple, and
from
you want to
Apple, and you
play
want to
this, but
play
don't
this, but
play this
don't
game.
play this game.
Hisham?
Hisham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
allowed,
it
of
is
course, to
allowed,
have
of course,
multiple
to have
accounts,
multiple accounts,
Yeah, I
but
think you
not
just
on
have to
but
let
commission.
not
them
on
know.
commission.
No, you have to let them know about it, and then
Maybe open a
I think
Maybe
support
open a
ticket and
support
ask them.
ticket and ask them.
it's the safest
It's the
way and
safest way, and
explain why you have
explain
three
why you have
accounts.
3 accounts.
If they say no,
If
you
they
don't
say
do it.
no,
If
you
they
don't
say
do it.
yes,
If
do
they
it.
say yes, do it.
So yeah, and I'm still curious. Like, what's the reason? Is it they're just different companies that have different products, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Hisham.
why do
Hisham.
why do you want to do that?
So we have one
So we
minute
have
left
1 minute
for
left
the call.
for the call.
Hisham,
Hisham,
write down
write down
write down
write down
your
your
story
story
in
in
the
the
group,
group,
and
Oh,
and
he didn't
he
answer
so
yet.
I
didn't
guess
answer yet. But
before we end, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, give us your
yeah, give
One
us
thing
your
I forgot
last.
to share was that
Yeah.
um, a um, a technique that's helped me is in terms of targeting. So in terms of my ASO, there are 10 different. I try to optimize for the U.S. mostly, and there are 10 different localizations that get indexed in the U.S. It's U.S., Spanish, Mexico,
Yeah.
Vietnam, Russia, so on. And
Yeah.
so I utilize all of them aggressively, and I try to look for the lowest competition keywords that I can that have decent traffic, and I'll try to create different combinations of titles. I mean, especially the titles. It's hard to create enough metadata for all of them, like unique metadata, but I'll try my best to really utilize them all, and that helps a lot just in terms of ranking for as much as like I I'll outrank a lot of people just because of that, and
Yeah.
it makes it
Yeah.
easier. Like once I start making revenue, to rank for a lot of stuff. So I would definitely try to maximize those localizations,
So
and
I
you can
have
find
one.
So
them.
I have one last
I
Oh,
have
go
question
one
ahead.
for
last
you.
question for you.
If
If
I ask you
I
what
ask you
is the
what
most
is the most
rewarded thing that
rewarded
you got
thing that
from the
you
group,
got from the group,
what would that be?
would that be?
What did you learn
You
What
from
said
did
the
you
group?
learn
Like
from the
one
group?
thing,
Like one
one or
thing,
two things.
one or two
Name
things.
anything you
Name
have in
anything
mind.
you have in mind right now.
so.
Do it.
I loved the master class. I guess just on doing the research. Just the database system that you use to figure out which opportunities that you want to pursue. Um, Smart look, crisp chat. Just for me, it's just being able to see the way that you think, and then besides that, it's always great to talk to other people who are going through the same process.
Okay. So
Okay.
we have
So we
one
have
last
one
question
last
from Hisham
question from
again, which
Hisham
is,
again, which is,
what is the
what
minimum
is the
traffic
minimum
you are
traffic you
interested
are interested
to choose your
to choose your,
like to look for
like to
when
look
you're
for
choosing
when you're
keywords?
choosing keyword?
Yeah, I like 30 and up for a
Mobile
traffic
action.
Mobile
score.
action.
What's that?
Mobile action
Mobile
30 and up.
action 30 enough.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I think that they're using the search score from Apple. I think that's what they're
Okay.
using.
Okay.
Okay.
And then in terms of competitiveness, I'll just I'll just try to get their they have a column called chance, and I'll try to get that as high
Mhm.
as possible. So
Okay.
if I see
Okay.
something like 90 or above, I'm like, okay, I need that one for sure. If it's in the 80s, that's still great. In the 70s, that's still pretty good.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, Below that, it gets tougher. But
Okay.
like
Okay.
one thing is that once you're ranking for a few good keywords, I think it makes it easier to rank for some of the harder ones, especially if you're
Okay.
making some money.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you, Moyo.
Thank you,
We
Moyo.
are 2
We are two
minutes
minutes
after the
after
official
the
time,
official
so
time, so
let's keep the
let's
conversation
keep the
going in the
conversation
group.
going in the group.
And
Yeah.
thank you
And
everyone
thank you
for
everyone
your time.
for your